it's Vikki J. Carter here, the author's librarian, and I wanted to personally welcome you to this presentation called Doing Research Well and Spending Less Time for Better Results. And so it's going to be about a 45-minute presentation, so I'm going to cram a whole lot in there. But before we get started, I wanted to share just a little bit about who I am, and then we will get started in the overall presentation. Okay, so as the author's librarian, I wanted to share with you just a little bit about my background. I am a professional librarian with 2 degrees in library science and information technology. I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree. I am certified as a Washington State Librarian for Life, which means I can work in any school district in the public school district in here, Washington State, in the United States. I have worked in academic libraries, I have worked in public libraries. I also have over 20 years of higher educational experience, which I absolutely love. But something that's also important for you guys to know is that I am a self-publishing indie author, and so I know all the demands and all the expectations and all the struggles there are with writing books and self-publishing them, as well as the energy that goes into all of that. And even though I'm a librarian, I too struggle with research, and so that's why I wanted to be here as the author's librarian for this very short presentation to share with you some tips so that you can research well and more efficiently, because honestly, as an author, I really love to give back to the authors community. So let's go to the presentation. Start off the presentation with you all, I am going to launch into the very first topic about how to structure your research time. And I'm going to do that by what I call the best method for research time, and that's called research sessions. I'm going to define for you what a research session is. I'm going to explain to you how to use questions while you're writing your draft to create research sessions and how to structure those research sessions. And we're going to talk real quickly about how to use follow-up research sessions to make sure that you build in the time that you need for research. That's how I view structuring research time. And so this is a time management skill that I have adopted for myself. I've talked to my students about researching, and I hope you enjoy this part of the presentation. I wish to share with you one of the best ways to organize your research time. These are what I call research sessions. I'll address what a research session is and how it works. Research sessions are created to help you stay away from what we call the rabbit hole of researching. Most authors know all too well how easy it is to wrap up our time in research, but research sessions will help you avoid the mindless researching trap and give you a purpose to your research. Research sessions start with you creating questions while you're writing your draft and recording them on the side in a notebook. And from those questions, you're going to construct your research time with a time limit to research each question individually, giving you priority time for your research sessions. The best time to schedule a research session is right after your writing session, when you have recorded 1 or 2 questions you need to research. You can break out a research session pretty easily. If you have up to 4 questions to research and you have 1 hour time block, you can give each question 25 minutes of dedicated research time. Make sure you put on your calendar your research study session. Make sure that you have some time chunked out for as many questions as you have to research, and record that as an appointment with yourself. When the date comes for your research time, make sure that you're devoting your time just to the research. Don't do any writing. Open up your notebook and start doing research question by question. Here are some tips for making this research session work out perfectly. Make sure you break up your research session into small chunks, 1 per question. Keep researching for a resource or a source for that question until you find a source that works for you. And make sure you stick to 1 question at a time, looking for 1 resource at a time. When you're all done with these questions, Or when your time has ran out for your research session, you're all done. You can keep doing this pattern of researching one question at a time, looking for one resource at a time until your time runs out or until you have answered all your questions. The key to research questions and sessions is to only work on one question at a time until you answer that question or until that time runs out. And to make sure you make a follow-up appointment with yourself to follow up with any questions you did not find answers for. Schedule another appointment and another research session. We all as writers want to get back to writing, and research doesn't have to be time-consuming or frustrating. If you employ the time management skill of research questions, writing your questions as you write, and coming back to them with appointments, you will be able to get back your writing time. I hope you enjoyed that little illustration that I created for you about how to create a research session and how they operate, how they work. The most important thing is that I hope that you adopt a research session and that you create them very similarly to how you would create your writing session. The next part that I want to talk about is how to construct questions so that you know exactly how much time you need in a research session. My world is so busy. I'm a very busy person. So I generally only have 4 questions in any research session that I'm looking for. And that's because I just don't have more time block that I can schedule to do research. And so that's what I do to make sure that I stay out of that rabbit hole of research that I talked about and we all know so well. This is one example question that I have had as I've been working on. I was thinking about women and how they were in the 1920s committed to asylums, or if they were committed to asylums. And so my topic line that I put at the very beginning for my research in my notebook, and I do keep a separate notebook away from my writing drafts on my computer. I keep a separate notebook just for researching so that as I'm writing my draft on the computer, then I can quickly grab notes for my research sessions. And so as I'm writing, and if a question comes up, then I can just quickly put it down into that notebook. This is how this developed for me. 1920s women asylum committal practices. I needed to know what were the reasons where women were being committed to asylums here in the United States in the 20s. How often were they released from those asylums? And if they were released, were they often recommitted, or were there accounts of women being recommitted? And then very important question I wanted to remember for myself was, can I find firsthand accounts or women that had written about this in their diaries during this time? Those were my 4 questions for this recent research session. And as soon as those questions kind of came up, I stopped my writing flow on that draft. I got my handwritten notebook. I put those questions down. I closed that notebook knowing that when I'm done with my writing session, I was going to create on my calendar a devoted time for my research time. I went back into the flow of writing and kept going, knowing in the back of my mind that I was going to make a priority to answer these questions. That is one of the biggest takeaways I hope that you receive from how to organize your research time. In this very short presentation that I have for this conference, that's my best tip. Adopt a time management skill called research sessions for yourself. Put them on your calendar. Create questions to guide you on how long you need to create a research session. Schedule them with yourself. And at the very end, make sure that you create another appointment for a follow-up. Let's say in my research time, I did not answer the last question. Are there firsthand accounts? I'm going to move that question to my next research session that I have scheduled or plan to schedule on my calendar. That'll be the first one I'll go look for. And remember, with the research sessions, stick with one question in a time block. For the 4 questions that I have here, I gave myself an hour. I gave 25 minutes per question. I could answer 3 of them. The 4th one I didn't get to answer. I couldn't find primary sources for that time. I moved that to the next time block and I kept going. And then I closed that research session knowing that I can go back to my writing session the next week or the next day or whatever and be comfortable knowing that I'm going to go back to this research. That's my best tip for organizing and how to use questions for research sessions. For this section of the presentation, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the perfect note and citation generation. I did have a little longer bit of this presentation, but I wanted to shorten it. And on the screen, you're going to see one of my handwritten notes going back to the questions that we created, or I created while I was writing about the 1920s women committal and asylum. And this is what my handwritten notes look like. And I'm going to break it down for you what you really need in this note. The first thing that you really need in your notes 100% is the author's first name and last name. You need the title of the source that you're using, if it's a book, whatever source it is, a journal. You want to make sure you write down the publication company, the date it was published, particularly what page you may have found the information that you really need. And then I always recommend a 2 or 3 paragraph paraphrasing that source. Like for this note, I wrote that the discussion of behaviors for women, why they were committed. There was a discussion in this source about conclusions of questionable reasoning, why men might commit their wives, and also what were the most common reasons. So those are all things I needed to know. And then I also suggest a sentence or two or how you might use this particular note in your work. For me, it was useful for the reason why was because the character with the first letter J was going to have his wife with the first letter B committed into the asylum. Always write down the URL or how you accessed it and keywords that you might have used to find this information. Now, handwritten notes can be messy. Let's take a look at how this can look in a typewritten note, as well as what happens when you condense all your information into a citation, which is very helpful to do. I want to show you a typed version of this note, or a note that I actually have used as well in the same vein of the research I was doing on women and asylum committals, but I changed it to Scotland because my character was actually going to be moving to Scotland or fleeing to Scotland to avoid being committed to the United States. What I did was I put the question, what were the practices in Scotland? If you guys remember the practices for United States I was looking for women in the 1920s committal. I accessed this record and I found this article on January the 21st, 2000. And then you'll see that the note looks a little bit different than my hand. And that's what I want to highlight. Because I was on the computer and I found this research or this resource through some research that I did on the computer, I was able to completely make a citation, and I used a citation generator. And I'm going to show you that here in a little bit, how I do that, and so that you can do it. Because what a citation generator is brilliant about doing, and most resources that you're going to find in a library, they'll automatically make citations for you. They will put all that important information that I had in my handwritten note, the author's name, publication, title, all of that, all into a citation that's ready for you to use. I got this article in and out of asylums, mental health care in the 19th century Scotland, and it's writings from Sir Arthur Mitchell. And I got this article and I created the citation so that I would have the author's name, the date of publication, the title, the journal that it was found in, the pages, and the link all in one handy dandy little teeny paragraph. So I didn't have to handwrite all that. So that just makes it really nice. It also makes it perfect for when you're at the end of your writing, your manuscript, you're ready to submit it, and you have to do a reference page or resources used page. You can just take your citations directly from your notes if you've already created the citation. You know, it's a win-win. Get them done fast and done, right? I also put down there what page the discussion was important to me, the most common reasons why women were committed in Scotland, and how this is useful once again for me in my storyline, because now B, my character, was going to try to flee to Scotland to her family to avoid being committed, but I kind of felt like she may be committed there as well. I had to do some research. I also added the keywords 1920s, asylum, women. I added Scotland and lunacy because those were 2 keywords that I used when I was doing research for this particular one that I got during that time. Okay, all that to being said, you can do it handwritten like I did in my notebook and still get all that information. You can make your notes on the computer. The benefit of doing your notes on the computer is that you can actually create your citation almost automatically by using a citation tool that'll have all the important pieces of anatomy of the perfect note that you need, right? But you don't have to. You can still get all that information down like I showed you in the handwritten notes. That's what I consider the most important thing as far as the anatomy of the perfect note. If that is all you take for your note taking, which I can guarantee you it only takes you 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. If you're handwriting, it might take a little longer for you to write your notes down. That's really all you need in your notes when you're doing research, because the point of your notes is to refresh your memory of why you found the source and to refresh your memory how that source and that information will be useful in your writing of your manuscript and to keep a log of that information. I hope these two style of notes help you. Let's go see how to make a citation out of using a citation generator. My favorite tips I like to share with people about creating citations. This is called Scribr. Scribr is an online citation generator, and there's quite a few of them that are out there. I used to teach and use Send a Citation in my library courses, and since then, some of them have all been bought out by one company. The reason why I chose to use Scribr for this presentation is because it's the one that has the least amount of advertisements. And you'll find a link in the workbooks that I provided with some other ones. They all generally do the same thing. I have picked the APA citation format for my purposes of writing and using this for our presentation. You can pick it any other format that you wish, which format you might want to use for what kind of writing, but it will depend on you, your genre, and more importantly about your publication or your publisher. All of that to say, what is that citation? Remember, if we go back to my perfect note anatomy, the best looking note and the easiest way to get the most information in your notes quickly is using a citation, because you will be using that citation later on in the future. Let me show you how this works. It's all online, so you do need internet access to use citation generators, except if you're accessing a database from a library. Many of them will generate citations for you. That's one tip to know. Let's say I found this website, which I did right here, just for the purpose of this wonderful presentation, the importance of the craft of writing and tips to improve. And it's from the Author Learning Center. I want to cite that. So let's say what I need to do is I can put the URL in here. I put the title. If you do the URL, I'll show you this is nice. One aspect about Scribr that I do enjoy, sometimes they get it accurate, is that you can cut and paste the URL and it might auto-generate that information for you, which means you don't have to do a lot of typing, which less mistakes. Yay! That's the one I was looking at. It did put in the title for me. It put in the URL. It didn't fill in the rest for me. The author's initials and last names, the publication date, the date I access will say today. If I need to go back and get Jason's last name, because I need to have that information, it won't generate my citation for me. And remember, the names of the author is important for the anatomy of that note. Now, publication date, unfortunately, this particular website doesn't tell me when the publication date is, but the last time it's been updated, copyright was 2018. So I'm going to just go use 2018 on this. I'm guessing. But unfortunately, these citations will not generate unless you have something there. And that's all I'm going to put in there. Now, this isn't all the notes that I want you to keep, but this will help generate your citation. Create the citation. And as you can see, Scribr is really nice at loading up other citations that I have created for myself as I'm doing research. You can click all of these and have them copied and then go right into a Word document if you wish. Let's bring up my Word document and show you what that'll look like. And paste, and there's my citations. The reason why I bring this all to your attention once again is to tell you that your notes don't have to be complicated and hard, but there are those key elements of the anatomy of the perfect note that I want you to try to get into your notes so that when you go back to look at your research, you know what you have in that research. There will be a list of at least 1 or 2 citation generators you can try out in the workbook. This is just one. It's a very simple example of how it works. I'm also going to put a phenomenal resource called Al Purdue linked into your workbook, and it is where we librarians love to send everybody to go, because even though you're using a citation generator, us librarians will tell you need to make sure that before you publish anything that you've checked all that information to be accurate. So that's the citation. I use Scribber. There's a couple more examples for you in your workbook. I'm coming off a camera for this particular slide because if there's an image that I want you to keep in your mind when you think about this discussion of why we should go beyond Google and Wikipedia, I hope it's this one. I really, really want to employ all the authors that have time with me to stop and think about, if they are only using Google and Wikipedia, some of the facts that I have uncovered in my own research about Google and Wikipedia as a librarian. And so stay tuned, because I'm going to show you what those are all about. But please just keep an open mind and listen to some of the things that I have to say about Google and Wikipedia. And at the end, I promise I'm going to give you a fantastic resource that you can go to and that you have an alternative besides Google and Wikipedia. Alrighty, so for this section of this presentation, we're going to be talking about one of my hot topics that I love to talk about with authors, and that is why we as authors in the community of writing need to go beyond Google and Wikipedia. I am going to give you some really good information about Google that I hope will convince you to not use Google only for researching. If that's the only thing you're doing for research, I hope the Google literacy section will change your mind about maybe doing research a little bit differently. As well as Wikipedia. I will have a section about Wikipedia literacy coming up here in just a second that will, I hope, also will change your mind. If you're only using Wikipedia for your research, there's some other alternatives that I want to turn you on to. In particular, one that I have time to share with you, the alternative first search engine that I call my first search engine, and that's WorldCat. I hope by the end of this part of this section and the end of this presentation, you will know why us librarians and me as the author librarian loves to preach about authors going beyond Google and Wikipedia, and then you'll take some time to try out WorldCat. Let's get on with that lesson. Here I'm going to be doing Google literacy, and most of this information shouldn't be a surprise to you as indie authors, but I do think that it's very important for me to talk about why I am so concerned about authors using Google, and in particular using Google only for their research. It's no secret that Google is profit driven, and how those profits are driven are by users clicking and ranking information based who's clicking. We know this as independent authors because many of us try to leverage search terms and rankings so that our blogs and our books get ranked up much higher. But on the flip side of that, when it comes to researching, it doesn't help when it comes to the basis of accuracy. So the highest ranking information that you find on Google most likely or could possibly not be the most accurate. The profit-driven aspect of Google really makes it a disadvantage for researching and researching well. It also is incredibly unreliable. It is no secret that anybody in this world can write something and create their own specific title and their own credentials and write something and put it on Google. And you can find it through Google. So that unreliability and that profit-driven aspect of it is the number one reason and number two reason why us as librarians in the authoring world will tell you flat out, don't only Google. I'll give you some reasons that you can use Google and some good tips on that, but this is very important for people to understand. Also, Google, as they're compiling information. They're often the information that you find has a very lack of comprehensive data, meaning the data is kind of splattered around in reports. It's hard to find. It's very convoluted, and it's organized poorly. Those two reasons make searching on Google and only searching on Google incredibly time consuming. Now, if you remember what the objective of this entire presentation was not only to research well, but to research effectively so that you can get back some writing time, right? And not go down what many of us call the rabbit hole of researching. Google will be your biggest distraction if that's what you're using for research, because of the lack of organization, the lack of comprehensive data, and the fact that this could just possibly be unreliable. It's going to take you a whole heck of a lot longer to filter through whatever you do find for the information that you do need to maybe get something reliable, which is going to take very valuable time away from your writing. I don't know about you. I don't want to waste my time trying to figure out if the source is reliable or if the source is highly ranked because it's a profit. I don't want to waste that time. I just want to get back to writing my book, right? I want to get back to that manuscript. So for those reasons, that's why I call this Google Literacies, because if you, for any reason, really have the habit only using Google for your research, I really hope that you take this message that I'm giving to you today with an open heart and in meaning how I mean it, that I care for you and I want you not to waste your time doing it that way. And I'll share you at least one resource besides Google that you can use that will be effective. So stay tuned to that, but let's talk a little bit about Wikipedia. Now it's time for me to pick on Wikipedia just a little bit. Before I get started on this whole Wikipedia discussion about Wikipedia literacy, from my perspective as a librarian, I do want to say that when Wikipedia came out, I was kind of excited about it. I thought it was quite an awesome concept that there was going to be an open free resource for people to contribute all over the world. The open source idea is really intriguing to me as a librarian and also as an author. However, there are some things about that open source concept when it comes to Wikipedia that I really would love you to be aware of. And that's where this Wikipedia literacy is going to come in handy. At the time of writing my book, I went to Wikipedia's website and I got these direct facts. It's no big secret that anybody can access and write and change and edit articles on Wikipedia. They don't have a body of editors or experts or anything. It's just an open source, so any of the articles that are on almost any of the articles are available to be edited by anyone. And at the time of writing my book, which was just a few months ago, there's over 900 million edits done with registered 1,115 administrators. That's just registered administrators, people that have acknowledged themselves as administrators of web pages on Wikipedia, with over 40 million registered users, not to mention users that aren't registered, and over 6 million articles. And the one thing that Wikipedia was really good at pointing out was that they are loosely monitored by anonymous volunteers. That is part of their model and their plan, which once again, it's very cool and exciting to think about that. But when you're thinking about accuracy, when you're thinking about reliability, when you're thinking about who's possibly writing these articles, that should give you a pause as an author for when you're doing research. If you're only doing research on Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia that has over 40 million registered users and 6 million articles that are loosely, and they even said the word loosely, monitored by anonymous volunteers, there should be a pause of discretion used when thinking about using Wikipedia only as your source of information. I'll see if I can tell the story in 2 minutes because I'm doing these short little segments. When I was a new author, I did pick up a book from a local author, and I got this book, super excited about it, and went to her reference page, and she only was using Wikipedia. And at the point of me reading the first paragraph where I found some errors in who she was quoting, because I knew who she was quoting, and I looked them up, as a librarian. I found that it was only Wikipedia. I actually put the book down and never looked at it again. She lost a lot of credibility in my eyes as a librarian. And I don't want that for you as an author. I want you to be able to be successful, and I want people to flock to your stories. And so any of the research that you do, I really, really want to encourage you to avoid Wikipedia as your only resource and Google as your only resource. That being said, let's talk about where you can get started, and also what is good and how to leverage Google and Wikipedia. There are some good things about each of them. For the purpose of this very short presentation here in this conference, I am going to give you just a few things that I do think are useful about Google. I'm not going to go into depth about each one of these. You can explore these on your own, but these are some really good things that Google can offer for researching. Google Books, they have made it their mission as Google Books to digitalize as many books as they could possibly get their hands on. Now, that being said, I'm not going to get into the discussion about copyright issues, infringements, or anything like that. That's a whole nother presentation. But Google has digitalized quite a bit of books, and most of them are in the public domain, meaning if you can't get access to a book in the public domain because you want to use it for reference or read something that will help inspire your writing, you may be able to find it on Google Books. You will find other things on Google Books as well. To find Google Books, Google Scholar, or Google Dictionary, all you have to do is go into the Google search engine where you got the search bar and just say Google Books or Google Scholar, and you'll get right on those pages, and you'll know you're on the right page to start using these products because it will say Google Books or Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar is Google's version of trying to be an academic repository for academic work. However, they're very good, and you can find quite a bit of good stuff on Google Scholar. And we do teach in libraries that you can use Google Scholar. However, we also caution, once again, that there is absolutely no vetting in Google Scholar, nor is there easy access for information. The one drawback about Google Scholar is that you may find something that you really, really want to get, but you can't get a hold of. And that's where your librarian can help you. Google Dictionary and Google Translate are fantastic for authors. Google Dictionary is actually an add-on app for Chrome, but the one thing that I do like to tell people that Google's great for is a very quick dictionary lookup or word meaning lookup or word origins while you're writing. I use it all the time. Also, as a dyslexic individual, which I am, Google Translator and Google Dictionary will read words back to me so I know what I'm writing is the word that I'm looking for. And it's just a quick way to do it. And the other thing that is so useful for us authors is Google Workspace. Many of us will use Google Forms, Google Spreadsheets, Google, their actual suite of writing platforms to cross-collaborate with one another. Those are the great things about Google. I only have a few minutes to really touch on those. I will go into a little more depth about Google Scholar in my online course because I'll dive a little deeper and show people how to use that. But for this purpose, there are some good things about Google. Google's great also for idea generations. Meaning, if you're just stumped and you don't know really started on a topic, or you just need to know how relevant a topic may be, or you want to just kind of feel it out a little bit, it's totally fine to Google that idea or that topic and see what else is out there, as long as that, in my opinion, is not your only last stop. Let's talk about what's useful in Wikipedia. What is useful about Wikipedia? I actually love teaching Wikipedia in library science courses or teaching Wikipedia usage for individuals in college that are starting out to do research, because I do feel like even though they have a lot of anonymous editors and authors, Wikipedia does try to create reference pages. And those reference pages are super helpful if you go and start there, because you can get linked into other resources that you may be able to get your hands on as far as accessing them through a library, an academic library, or anything like that. Discovery of search terms and keywords, or as a general topic idea, Wikipedia is a really great source. But the idea that I like about Wikipedia is that it does give you a tremendous value in their references. If you're using a page that doesn't have references and that have not been updated often or regularly from Wikipedia, it can still hopefully point you into a direction where there is a reliable source that you can get that has been updated. So that's where I think Wikipedia is super spectacular at. I also do like that Wikipedia is based in an encyclopedia model. Encyclopedias, if you haven't used one since you were a kid, are really good first idea generation text. They're going to be short little snippets about a topic, and it's going to give you a short little bit to get your juices flowing and help you move forward. And I kind of want people to look at Wikipedia as that as well. But always remember my warning of caution, which I'll probably say again in this presentation about Google and Wikipedia. But don't be afraid to use Wikipedia, especially their references, but also double check those references. The number one rule in library science or in your writing world as a professional author, here as an independent author or otherwise, the number one rule about Wikipedia is never ever cite it as your only source and never quote Wikipedia as your only source. That's where people will lose a lot of credibility. Just think back to a second ago about that book that I picked up where I didn't want to finish reading it because the author lost tons of credibility with me because their only sources were from Wikipedia. You never cite Wikipedia as your source or your only source. All right, let's go on. I'm going to give you the down and dirty number one resource that I love to recommend to individuals as an alternative first search. Besides Google and Wikipedia, the place that I really would love authors to go to first, and this is going to be a 5-minute blitz, it's WorldCat. I love WorldCat. I will, in my online researching course that for authors, we will go really heavy into using WorldCat and why it's fantastic and how to use it. But this is your 5-minute overview of WorldCat and how fantastic it can be. I might extend a little bit. You might have a couple little chunks to watch here. WorldCat is the world catalog that librarians across the world use. So that makes it a super powerful resource. The one thing about librarians is that we vet resources. We collect them, we vet them, we make sure that they're reliable, the best that we can. Let's just do a super quick search in WorldCat. Let's do 1920s. Oh, that looks fun. 1920s fashion. Okay, so let's just I'm really stuck on the 20s if you haven't noticed. It's kind of the era that I'm working on. The things about WorldCat is that it's going to automatically give you a whole selection of possible books in print, dissertations, ebook documentation, all sorts of possible formats. And you can change your formats over here. Let's say you only want to have books in print. It's going to change it really quickly for you. Now, this is the key to using WorldCat. You may want to find your library and what they have available to them or what libraries will have available around you. So if you go to find a library, and I'm going to put my zip code, which is in my area here in Washington State, in the United States, it's going to lay out for me right here which libraries are in my local area. This happens to be my local public library. You can see I've done some researching on there. This is one of the colleges I used to work for. By adding these libraries as my favorites, you can also log in and create an account. You are going to be able to see what is available for you in your library collection from WorldCat and how to get that information. I'm going to pause here for just a minute. I'm going to log in and show you what that looks like. Okay, I'm back. One thing I did want to point out now that I'm back, anybody can create an account on WorldCat. You don't have to be a librarian. And so this is also a really good, valuable tool for you to start collecting resources right here in WorldCat, and I'll show you how to do that. I logged in. I checked ebooks because I'm currently only reading ebooks right now, and I did the 1920s. And here is an ebook that sounds incredibly interesting to me. 1920s ebook diaries, and by anonymous American women. So anything that is related to journals or diaries is one of your best things to get for researching as an author. When you click on it, it's just like a record you would find in your public library's system, but there's a lot of information here. You'll see what libraries have that in their holdings and how far away you are from it. You can ask a librarian questions. Yes, there are librarians that man this for free to help answer questions, and they're actually really, really good. And a lot of them will be libraries from the University of Library that you're asking the question about. So don't hesitate to ask questions. You can see if you can find a copy in your library. But here's the thing that I want to show you, because remember we talked about citations, right? And I encourage you to create a citation. Well, Google doesn't have a citation machine, right? So you would have to go to another third-party citation generator with a lot of advertisements probably to create citations. You don't have to do that. If you are in WorldCat, you can create a citation for yourself. Say this book is something that I really, really am interested in, and I want to make sure I have that citation in my notes. Just click the Cite and Document, export, and I always do APA, and there you go. You have it listed right here. You can also export it to RefWorks or EndNotes or EasyBib. Some of the great note-taking tools, they already do the work for you. You'll be able to log into those accounts if you're using those and export it right away and continue on your note-taking, which is absolutely fabulous. The other thing that you can do is look for similar items. Currently, it creates a tag for me, Diaries of 1920, but this is not something that has ever been tagged before as a tag. But if I go to North American Women Letters and Diaries, I actually find quite a bit more. And that's what's called a search term. WorldCat does a whole heck of a lot for you already by just doing some search term on materials, on sources, ebooks, prints, microfiche or film, large print, already curated from professional librarians, from libraries across the world. And this is where I would highly encourage you to go and start building your resource lists and your search lists. And then if you find a book or an item that you really want and they're not at a library near you or you can't get access to it, create the citation, or even just keep it in your WorldCat account, save it, and run off to your local library or call your library, email your library and say, hey, can you get this item for me? Because they will more than likely be able to do so or get help or get you something similar. That's where WorldCat is and how important it is. I'm going to click out of this for a second and look. And one more thing I want to show you. Just hang with me. I'll be right back. WorldCat is such a fantastic tool and such a better search engine for you to start your researching on. There's so many great tips about it and so many wonderful things that I'd love to share. I just won't have the time here to do it. I did want to point out that you can have your own profile where you can create watch lists. You can see what your favorite libraries are. You can create lists. I don't have anything currently created in here, but you can save your searches too. You almost can get away with keeping all your notes in WorldCat because they will allow you to add a couple of notes in your citation as you're collecting them. You might just want to use WorldCat as a note-taking tool for yourself. I have two very old searches in here. Then you can make these public or private. There's a test topic that I did, and then there's the Bronze Period that I was doing some research for another author as a service. And since then, there's been some added results to this particular topics that I found for her. WorldCat is one of probably the best places to get started. And trust me, it's not just for librarians. It really is a great place for authors to create all of their research. And it makes it really easy. If you do your search in WorldCat, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to partner with librarians across the world. Yes, I said librarians across the world, because I do believe with the digital age that we have now, you can make friends with librarians all over the world to get information that you might need across the world, not just in your region. It'll make that a lot easier if you already have done some of your searches here. And I will be going into WorldCat really heavily in my online course, and I'll give you some more information at the end of this particular session, and I hope to see you there. Dig into WorldCat, create your account, start doing some searches, and test me. Let me know by email if your searching on WorldCat provided better results for you for researching, provided faster results, more reliable results, and made your note-taking a whole heck of a lot easier than if you were just doing Google or Wikipedia or stabbing in the dark somewhere, okay? Alrighty, so that's it for WorldCat for me. All right, my friends, that is it for me, the author's librarian. And honestly, I feel like we crammed a whole lot of information into about 45-minute presentation for this conference. I'm glad that you were here with me. I wanted to recap what we talked about. This session was doing research well, spending less time for better results. We talked about how to structure a research time, and I call those research sessions. We talked about how to organize your research, and I really focused in on your notes, note-taking, and the anatomy of a great note. We talked about going beyond Google and Wikipedia. We talked about why we need to do that and how to leverage those search engines with what was good about Google and Wikipedia individually. And then I introduced you to a really great first search engine, WorldCat, and I hope you enjoyed this session. Since we did cram a whole lot into this session, I wanted to also put out there that I'm here for you. I am the author's librarian. I have just put out a book that will help you with researching. You can find that at my website. I am creating an online course, hopefully that will be out this year, where I'm going to expand on all these topics that you can go in as an author and learn all this information at your own time, at your own pace, and at your own skill level. And so until next time, I hope you find me at my website or find me on social media. I love to engage with authors, and I'm here for you, and I love to help you. So happy researching.